The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's the 22nd of July, 2025. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and Stephen Wagner as we discuss the news of the day as the countdown is on for the start of fall camp, the regular season, August 31st. Notre Dame, Hard Rock Stadium will be here sooner than we can imagine. And we are getting amped up here at CaneSport. And today is ACC Media Day. We will be feeding you guys tons and tons and tons of information coming out of that. Mario Cristobal set to hit the podium at about 11 o'clock this morning. Several players are in Charlotte with him. And we will have all your coverage. And Matt, I know you're getting fired up. Your enthusiasm is runneth over. You can't wait for the start of training camp. It's your favorite time of the year. What do you think comes out of ACC Media Day today?
Not much. I'm looking forward to a few different things.
How did I know he was going to do that, Stephen? We knew it, right? We knew.
I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to hearing from Miami's second highest paid staff member because he will control the season. I'm talking about Carson Beck, obviously. He will control the season, and not just because he has half of the Miami basketball team's entire roster salary in one player.
He does.
He does, but because how he goes will determine the course of the season. And if I don't know how many of you watched Todd McShay spoke for about 5 minutes about Carson Beck on his show. I think it was yesterday, whatever. But he really put it in a nutshell. And the question was, is Carson Beck an NFL player? But he didn't answer it that way. He answered it the way Miami fans have been talking about it, which is Carson Beck can do so many great things, but he has so many question marks, and not talking about the injury. Todd McShay's bringing up Georgia fans and the Georgia program didn't even try to keep him, and it's not like the Stockton guy is that good. That's another part of what Todd McShay said. Stockton's like average. He's not great. And so why would George let him go? He said Georgia had the money, he said, but they didn't want him. And he essentially said that this guy's got a lot to prove in terms of him being a teammate, a locker room guy, a guy you can trust in your program, which is scary to hear a guy like McShay says, because he has his ears to the ground. He knows everybody and everything. So I'm assuming he spoke to some people at Georgia that gave him some lowdown, that gave him some pause, because he was definitely down talking Carson Beck. And I sort of like that because I think Carson Beck needs to have that chip on his shoulder, just like all the Miami Hurricanes in history have had. And we're going to find out today if he has that chip. If Carson Beck gets up there and he's like, yeah, things are going well, I'm just happy to be here, great. I want to see some fire, man. I want to see, people are disrespecting me. I'm out to prove something. I am going to show people why they are wrong. That's what I want to hear from Carson Beck, not just stupid throwaway lines about how he hopes everything works out and, he's happy at Miami, but he hopes Georgia does okay and he wishes them well. Like, none of that crap. I want to see Carson Beck, who's got that personality and that drive, and not a guy who's getting, $5, $6, whatever is $1 million at the end of the day, living in his house off campus with 3 cars and just happy to sit in front of a TV and relax most of the time. I mean, that can't be the guy that's leading Miami that you're paying all this money to. So I want to see that. And you know what you're going to get from Mario Cristobal. Mario's going to be fired up. He's such a great interview always. So he doesn't tend to really give you a lot of, in terms of like minutia, like, injury stuff. He might mention a few guys here and there that are banged up, whatever. But he's great with the big picture stuff. How'd the team do in the offseason? He's not going to talk anything negative, okay? But you can get a sense from his excitement level. Like Gary and I know him really well. Steven, I guess knows him a little bit. But certainly not for the 30 years that Gary and I have known him. Well, Gary's known him longer than 30 years. So we can sort of see from Mario's demeanor, just knowing the guy, right, for that long, we can see if he's really, really excited about the season, as Stephen Wagner would say, or if he's just really excited about the season. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the other three guys, like whatever. We'll see if they say something interesting. But Mawanoa tends to sort of, like all offensive linemen, right? It's not going to be the greatest interview all time. The Saints has used to give great interviews, but he's learned how not to because he's been trained by the SID staff at Miami very, very well. He's an excellent learner at how not to speak, how not to say things that might get him in trouble. And Akeem Messenger is a great personality, but he also isn't going to say anything crazy. So it's really Beck and Mario. Those are the two that if you only have 20 minutes free today and not 50 minutes free today to an hour free today, tune in for those two. Those are going to be great, great interviews.
I sense the salty Matt Shodell is already appearing, and we haven't even gotten started yet here. But you did open up a couple doors, which are good. And we'll start with Carson Beck. We haven't really gotten to know this kid to the point where he's been completely walled off since he arrived. I mean, they didn't even have a press conference after he got here. It was the biggest transfer portal acquisition of the year, possibly. And they didn't even have a press conference and allowed Carson Beck to speak. Mario believes that your place has to be earned on the team. And they didn't even let him discuss his transfer to Miami to this point. So we really are relying a lot on secondhand reviews of him, perspectives on him, to formulate our own opinions. And we do not know what makes Carson Beck tick at all. And what I would like to be going through his head right now is I'd like to see him showing up with a gargantuan chip on his shoulder because he is being disrespected at every corner of the United States. People are leaving him off quarterback rankings for the season. This is a kid that a year ago was being mentioned as maybe the top quarterback coming back in college football. This year, he had an injury that he worked through, and now he's an afterthought. People are totally disrespecting him, and I hope that this kid has the competitive fire that it motivates him. And I hope he does have a chip on his shoulder, and maybe we'll start to get a feel for that as he speaks today. But he should be a highly motivated Carson Beck going into the season. He's got a good offensive line. He's a quarterback that needs that level of protection. He's going to have it. Is Miami good enough on the outside? We're going to find out. We don't know the answer to that at this point. We hope they are. We think they've got some talent out there. Tony, JoJo, some of these transfer portal pickups. Caleb Marion is one that I think they're going to try to take him to the next level. But it's all speculation right now. And we don't know what Carson Beck's going to have in his toolkit there with the Miami offense. But there are things that should make it advantageous for him to have a really good year, and he should be highly motivated. Mario, if you're waiting for Mario to loosen up a little bit, I think you're going to probably be waiting a long time. I mean, listen, his job's not on the line or anything, but the pressure is amped up this year. I mean, this is year 4. People are expecting Miami to be in the ACC championship game, and they're expecting Miami to be in the playoff. And that is it's a realistic goal. It should be the goal. Anything less than that is an absolute disappointment. But it's still a lot of pressure on the coach to get his team through training camp and positioned to be the kind of team that can make that happen, especially when you're starting with Notre Dame on opening night. And it's a home game. It's going to be huge, part of college football opening weekend. And that puts pressure on the head coach. Let's be honest. I don't think you're going to see a relaxed Mario Cristobal at all in the month of August. I think he's going to be zoned in and highly motivated himself to get this football team ready to go. Stephen, we got a bunch to talk to you about on this show, but let's start here with the start of sort of the fall with Media Day. What are your general thoughts as the Hurricanes now are about a week out from starting fall camp, and the season finally, after all this recruiting coverage that you've been doing, gets to be put into practice here with players taking the field?
Well, I mean, just kind of like from a more overarching standpoint, going into the season, there's no excuse anymore for Mario if Miami doesn't win. They've invested in the program very, very well. They've been incredibly competitive in the NIL space. The University of Miami has given Mario the resources that I think at this point, it's been proven that you need if you're going to win in today's age of college football. I think they've offered him, way more support financially from a university standpoint than they probably ever offered Mark Richt or Al Golden before that, or I obviously was like 8 years old whenever Randy Shannon was the coach. But it seems like the university has seriously gotten behind Miami or behind Mario Cristobal and the Miami football program. Now, that being said, is Miami, has Miami compiled a roster that, we think is on par with, the Ohio State team that won the national championship last year? Do they have the same resources that Texas has, who seemingly is just throwing a bag at pretty much any player that they want, whether it's in the transfer portal or whether it's from the high school level? I personally probably don't think so, but Mario now has all of his guys. These are the dudes that he wanted. He's built Miami in his, kind of the way that he wants it to be built, with a very, very strong emphasis on offensive line and trying to build a program from front to back. He's gone and he's recruited pretty well. I think right now the pressure is on Mario to prove that he's actually developing the talent that he really has. I mean, year one, I think we can more or less write that off. I mean, that was a season where obviously they're trying to implement a new culture, and there's all these roster changes and all sorts of stuff. So things didn't really click in year one. Year two, Mario gets his first full recruiting class in. Year three, he starts to kind of piece it together. He gets some transfers that really do something special. And year four, well, that recruiting class, that first full recruiting class that he had in 2023, those guys are now draft eligible. So he needs to prove that, these guys that, he brought in, these stars, are actually turning into the NFL prospects that he told them they were going to be whenever he went out and recruited them. So I think if Miami doesn't win big this year, I mean, quite frankly, I don't know how many excuses Mario has left.
Yeah, and I don't think he's looking to make excuses, to be honest with you. I think he has built to this point where he's got a team that's stronger in the middle of the roster. I'm not sure that there's an enormous amount of top shelf talent at the top that's so different from what they've had in the past, but I do think that it's a deeper roster, it's a thicker roster, so to speak, and I think the middle of the roster has made a gargantuan improvement here over the last year or so, and that should stand Miami in good stead this season, and it needs to, and I think that'll be Mario's expectation, it'll be the fans' expectation. But Steven, you mentioned resources, that's a subject that's been in the spotlight the last 24 hours or so, because the Texas Longhorns have just strolled into South Florida and are just walking out with the best talent in the area. You can argue whether Diabell, the quarterback at American Heritage, is any good. Some people think he is, some people think he isn't. Nobody's disputing the quality of James Johnson, the defensive lineman out of Miami Northwestern, that's now committed to Texas after initially committing to Georgia, got a bigger bag from Texas. And then Derek Cooper, the running back from Hollywood Chaminade, who committed to Texas on Sunday night. That's a trifecta for the Texas Longhorns. Not a great thing, but then you start taking a look at certain things, and like The Athletic did a ranking based on what's the value of franchises in college football. And they point out that Texas football generates about $183 million a year, while Miami football generates about $75.5 million. So that's over $100 million more money being generated by Texas football through all the money that they come up with up there, the support through the SEC, revenue shares and things like that. And they have the option of taking some of that and putting it into NIL. So there is not an NIL budget at Texas. clearly. They are spending whatever they need to spend to land whoever they can land. And it's impacting Miami here in South Florida because they are coming in here and taking the best players from this area to Austin, Texas. And, Stephen, I know that like there's a part of you as a Texas alum that is probably, happy to see this, but it's very problematic. I mean, Texas, there's no program in the country. Forget about Miami being 100 million behind. There's not a program in the country that comes within $25 million of Texas from a revenue standpoint, and that gives them a huge, a really, 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 really huge advantage to everybody else in the college game. And Stephen, you're seeing it in the recruiting arena.
Yeah. Well, first off, Gary, I would just like to say that if I could go back in time to 5 years ago, before I ever knew that I would be covering Miami Hurricanes recruiting, I absolutely would have just gone to Eastern Washington instead. I would have said, you know what? If I go to the flagship university, the major state school in my home state, that's definitely going to piss some people off on the message board so many years from now, whenever Gary Ferman eventually hires me. So I'm really sorry about that, guys. Wish I would have gone to Eastern Washington instead. But I really do think that Miami fans kind of need to collectively take a breath, because does Texas have pretty stupidly deep pockets? Yeah, they do. Did they offer a bag for James Johnson and Derek Cooper? Yeah, they freaking did. Have they really ponied up for the guys that Steve Sarkisian has kind of circled as the quintessential must-get recruits for Texas? Yeah, they absolutely have. But I don't think that Miami is in nearly as bad position from an NIL standpoint as fans make it out to seem. It's just because recently they've lost some of these head-to-head battles. Because quite frankly, it's pretty tough if you're going to try to get into a bidding war with Texas. There have been instances in the last couple of years that Miami actually fended off Texas. A few years ago, this wasn't really discussed a ton, but Texas did try to make a little bit of a run at Elijah Lofton whenever Lofton was committed to Miami, or excuse me, when Lofton was preparing to commit to Miami. Texas also tried to make a run at him during the season. Lofton decided to stick with the Hurricanes. Obviously, there was a little bit of a back and forth with Jarrett Gibson back in the 2024 class. Texas ended up getting him. Miami liked Kevin Riley more at the time, but there was a little bit of a back and forth there. He ended up going to Texas. But with James Johnson and Derek Cooper, with Johnson specifically, I don't think enough fans really appreciate just how close Miami actually was. The Canes quietly made a pretty aggressive push about a week and a half or so after he committed to Georgia. Miami was really right there. I had someone tell me that before Johnson flipped from Georgia to Texas, there was a moment where it seriously seemed like he might seriously flip from Georgia to Miami. And as soon as he committed to Texas, that same night, Miami was on the phone with his camp telling him, hey, we know that you're committed to Texas. We don't care. We are going to stay very aggressive until signing day. And with a player like Johnson, everyone very definitely recognizes what it is going to take financially to stay in his recruiting picture. With Derek Cooper, too, Miami really did keep pushing pretty freaking hard for Cooper. And yeah, there are all these reports out there about the bag that Cooper got to go to Texas. And I'm pretty sure it was over $1 million. But Miami really did really did have the liquidity to be able to potentially match that offer from Texas. But I think where things got kind of complicated there is if you're going to pay a guy like Cooper that kind of money, well, the guys that are ahead of Cooper on the depth chart, Jordan Lyle, if he comes back next year, Mark Fletcher potentially if he were to come back next year, all of a sudden they're going to ask, hey, why is this unproven freshman who's never played a snap in college football, why is he getting this kind of money? And what's that say about what I'm worth? So I think there are kind of some budgetary questions on that front. But this idea that Miami is just absolutely helpless, that Miami doesn't have the dollars to compete with Texas, quite frankly, I just don't buy it. Now, I don't know if Miami could go toe to toe with Texas for literally every single guy that they want on the board, but they absolutely have the resources to stay competitive for some of these select guys. It's just about figuring out, okay, who do you want to spend the big money on, and who are you okay with letting walk? That's also part of today's age of college football. Is if you're not going to get this guy, get another school to empty their war chest for him. Get another school to overpay. Get into that bidding war. Force this other program to drive up the price for him. Force them, to pay way too much money at a position that you don't think is that valuable. So do you want to go crazy and overspend for Jackson Cantwell, and you have the resources? By all means, go ahead and do it. Do you want to get into a bidding war for a running back if he's actually that valuable for you, and you are that confident, and you are that convicted, and you are that certain that he is going to be a superstar? Then by all means go for it. But if you're going to overpay for someone and you're going to get into a bidding war for someone, you better be damn sure that guy is the right player. What did Nick Saban say last year on College Game Day about Ohio State's $20 million roster? You can pay, you can have a $20 million roster, but if you're paying the wrong guys, you're going to be shit out of luck. That's kind of the way that I view this. Miami and Texas, they can get into these bidding wars for guys, but if either of these schools are paying the wrong guys, you're going to suck. You really are going to be shit out of luck.
All right. So it's going to be really interesting to watch, this whole thing moving forward. It was Ohio State. It's been Georgia. Now all of a sudden Texas is in the mix here in South Florida. And wow, it's going to be, when you look at the dollars and the resources that they have available to them and the will to use them, it's going to be interesting to see not just how these couple recruitments with Johnson and Cooper play out here down the stretch, but in the big picture moving forward. Because once you give them a taste of that South Florida success, they're coming back now year after year. So we'll see what happens there. But right now we are focused on this year, and the Miami Hurricanes, we believe, are going to be showing up pretty good. And we did a little bit of a study. Well, Matt kind of did. We sent Matt into the proverbial lab that he loves to go toil in, and we'll be sending him there a lot here in the next few months. The football season is when we really try to lock Matt in that lab, because great stuff does tend to come out of there. And Matt, you took a look at a lot of the preseason projections, DraftKings, FanDuel. You looked at Lindy's, you looked at Athlon's, kind of a little bit of everybody that does predictions. And I think you came up with a pretty good forecast for Miami. People are projecting the Canes to finish anywhere from number 10 to number 25. A lot of people think they're going to lose the Notre Dame game. I'm not one of them. The Florida game, figures to be kind of tight in most people's minds, but Miami's shaping up relatively well, Matt, in the prediction game.
Yeah, I mean, we went game by game. The way the season's going to go, fans will either be acting like they're on the Kiss Me Cam at a Coldplay concert, or they'll be acting like they're Gary Ferman at a Barbra Streisand concert. Just super excited.
It is amazing the way people are seizing on that the CEO at the Coldplay concert story, man. Everyone's weighing in all over social media and everywhere. It's taken on a life of its own, and my God, I'm not going to say you feel sorry for either one of them, but wow, I don't think they were anticipating that when they went out for the evening.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I wasn't trying to get sidetracked, but
you always get sidetracked.
Well, you got sidetracked. That's why me.
No, I get sidetracked.
Anyway, so look, this stuff never goes the way fans expect it to, except the rare instances when it does. And if again, it all comes down to Carson Beck, right? If he the range of realistic games that Miami might lose, I mean, realistically, just based on the odds analysis, there's only like 3 games that they should even be close to possibly losing, right? Which would be Notre Dame, Florida, and I have the SMU one as a narrow victory, right? Even Louisville being at home for Miami, you know, they're already a 7.5 point favorite in the game according to DraftKings against Louisville. So odds wise, you're not going to say, oh, you know, that's one they're probably going to lose, or that's one that's going to go either way. I mean, that's a pretty big line. You know, it's not 7 points, it's not 6.5 points, it's 7.5 points. That's more than a touchdown expected to win by. You could bet on it right now. So you're looking worst case scenario according to the bookies at 9-3. Like, that's the worst case scenario, which is probably bad for Mario Cristobal, because it just seems like they always lose a game that nobody sees coming, right? I think what is Florida State after a bye on the road this year, something like that, right?
I think I had that game as the one that I thought was going to be like the biggest trap game or something like that.
Right,
Florida State on the road terrifies me.
And after a bye, Miami struggles after byes, right? Pittsburgh, the last game on the road in cold weather. We saw what happened against Syracuse, right? You could literally point at every game except for, that's off the top of my head, I think Bethune and USF, are those the 2 gimmies? You can point to every other game, almost except for Stanford or whatever that West Coast team is. That's
Stanford,
awful. Yeah. Those 3 games, like, those really are the only games that you know they're going to just crush the other team. So they can go 3-9 if you look at it that way. So fans, so it's sort of, you know, and guess what? We've posted about this on the message boards, and fans are sort of split. Fans have gone from, God forbid anybody says Miami's going to lose a game, God forbid, to sort of expecting it, right? It's a strange, it's almost like what's going on in the world, right? The last time that Americans weren't proud of the country or had this low a level of pride in the country was also the last time Miami Hurricanes won a national title in 2001. If Miami can win the national title this year, I think we'll have a lot of pride. We'll feel very good. The Gallup numbers will go up. But yeah, so, like, you know, just like the country is divided between left and right, or whatever you want to say it is. I mean, everything seems like someone's on one side or the other side of it nowadays versus what it used to be. It's like that's where Miami fans have sort of come together. There used to be this divide between, if somebody says they're going to lose a game to FSU, like, I think they're going to lose to FSU, oh my God, there's 1,000 people that are going to be like, you're an idiot, ban them, like, you know, cursing them out. But the fan base has actually come together and sort of realized we're all in this together. We're all pulling in the same direction. Like, if a fan says they're going to lose the FSU game, other fans are like, you know, why do you think that? And somebody will say, well, look, they just like Steven just said, right? They always seem to lose a game they shouldn't. That's on the road, da-da-da. And I think that will actually help sort of alleviate some of the issues Mario has to deal with, because Miami coaches here have been driven out year after year after year for a bad season or two, or a perceived awful season, because the fan base used to be expecting national championships every year, or at least an ACC championship every year, certainly not 4 or 5 losses in a season, ever. And fans have sort of come to realize, like, this actually is rebuilding. You know, it's been so long that half the fans don't even remember the last championship, right? How long ago was that? 24 years ago, right? So if you're 30, I think I was 35 years old, and you can't remember your first 11 years, which I can't, because they probably were traumatizing, then you don't remember the last national championship. So look, there's good and there's bad. I sort of like where the fan base is now, because I always go into movies expecting the worst, because then you'll only be happy afterwards. If you go in expecting a great movie, you're probably going to be disappointed 90% of the time and leave like, oh, this was a waste of money, right? So I think Miami fans will be happy with what happens, as long as it's not 8-4. I think 9-3, borderline playoffs. I think fans will be like, okay, you know, we've been through this before. We'll figure it out. We're still going in the right direction, right? 10 wins, fans will be very, very happy, because that'll be the playoffs. And anything better than that's great. So I think all Mario's bar it really is this year is 9 wins. I thought it was 10 until I sort of saw how fans this summer have been talking to each other. And I think now the bar is set at 9, and he'll be fine at 9. 9 and miss the playoffs, I think fans will be like, listen, you know, we know where we're at. We're still building. We've got tons of freshmen and redshirt freshmen and true sophomores that are going to be amazing. And I think Mario's bought himself some time as long as he can get to that 9-win mark.
I don't think 9 wins gets it done, man. I don't.
I think fans are okay with that based on the young talent in this roster. They'll be like, okay, next year.
No.
You know?
Was 9 wins?
By the way, I'm still predicting 10. I'm still predicting 10. By the way, I'm just saying I think Mario's bought himself 9 wins being okay. I really do.
Did Randy Shannon and Al Golden buy themselves 9 wins being okay? Because I mean, I'm pretty sure both of them had some 9-win seasons.
Do you understand how they didn't even last 4 years? Their 4th years, they were gone.
Listen, Mario does not have any job security issues, no matter what they win. But
but you want the perception. Gary, you and I both know, and Steven doesn't, but you and I both know, Gary, that if they win 7 games this year, or God forbid 6 games this year, and something goes wrong, and Carson Beck is terrible, it doesn't matter if he has job security for 100 years. Okay, the noise around the program will prevent recruits from wanting to be here. The noise around the program will prevent donors that aren't maybe the big buddies with Mario from giving the money that they still desperately need. The program will be under fire nationally. Like, you just can't do it. You know, he's got to. I mean, he probably needs to get 9 wins, but I think 9's okay. I don't understand why you don't think 9's okay. It's not that.
I just don't think 9 wins anything. I think if you win 9, you're going to fall short. You know,
okay.
I think falling short of Charlotte is not success. I just I can't put a happy face on that.
Look at this perspective.
That said, I don't think Mario is under any pressure.
This is the only reason
I want him to be.
Well, this is the only reason I think you're wrong, and I still predict 10 wins. By the way, the reason I think you're wrong is I think fans are smart enough to understand he's riding with transfers. There's going to be 10 or maybe even 11 starting transfers next year, right? As we project out to 2026, it's his recruits.
You don't know that.
And if it's not his recruits, then he's failed at that point, okay?
No.
But once we see his team playing with his recruits and you just got 3 or 4 transfers, then you can say you suck or you made it, right? Until that point, if he still feels like he's got all these holes in the roster for whatever reason, that you have to start 11 guys who you're bringing in from all these different places, some of them not even necessarily that good.
It means you're not evaluating well enough. No argument.
Well, he's had 4 years of recruiting classes, right? And the first year of recruiting class hasn't really panned out well, and maybe that's not his fault because his whole system is predicated on recruiting guys for years upon years upon years, not in one cycle. He's recruiting guys that are in 7th and 8th grade. You know, he's becoming friends with those coaches. He's friends with Pop Warner coaches. Babies are born in South Miami Hospital, and they're 12 pounds, 4 ounces, and he's sitting outside the waiting room waiting to talk to the parents, okay? But no, he establishes long-term relationships. And that's also why transfers don't work for him, because transfers is just a money grab. And, you know, I'm not a fan of that. I don't think it works. I think the whole relationship thing, the recruiting thing, just match other people's offers. You get those guys, they're bought into your coach already, and you go from there. And that's what he's doing with the last 2 to 3 classes. So while he's been here 4 years, I really feel he's only been here 2 or 3 years because there's just not really that first class just hasn't panned out for me, you know, and that's why he still has so many transfers starting.
All right. Well, it's all about evaluation. And Stephen, we sent you into the lab a little bit yourself, and we took a look at which Miami commits. There are a few of them this year that are ranked 3 stars, and their seasons are coming up. Their training camps are coming up, and you know, you look at the 3-star cornerback Camden Portis. You look at lineman Joel Irvin, who Miami loves. I don't know why that kid's a 3-star. They love him almost as much as Jackson Cantwell. J.J. Sparks, Rice Woodrow. These are all 3 stars that seem like they're within striking distance of earning a 4th star here this fall. Stephen, I'll jump in and take Irvin. I think he's almost guaranteed to get a 4th star. Your thoughts on who else might get it?
Yeah, just real quick with Irvin, he is currently a 4-star on another ranking site. Right now, he's at that 89 rating, which is within a point of getting that 4th star. I think it's just a matter of cleaning some stuff up. I think Camden Portis has to definitely be the most obvious candidate. You know, here over the last, I mean, really I guess it must be the last 2 or 3 rankings updates now. He's really held pretty steady, kind of in that just outside the top 300 range. I really think that there are a lot of things to like about him. Whenever I've seen him live, He really has looked pretty good, even though it's just been in 7-on-7 settings. He's been in shorts and a t-shirt, but he does move really well. I haven't personally had the opportunity to see him live yet, but I really am looking forward to getting the chance to actually sit down and watch his tape this fall, because I think he probably is pretty freaking close. JJ Sparks and Reese Woodrow, quite frankly, seeing them get the bump up to 88 player ratings really did kind of surprise me a little bit, because an 88 is a pretty solid upper level 3-star player by the ranking services. And, of the 6 offensive linemen that Miami currently has committed in this year's class, I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of was a little bit lower on those two than some of the other guys. So I think that, them getting the bump probably indicates that Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal, they have an eye for talent evaluation, specifically along the offensive line, that a lot of us don't, because it's happened a bunch of different times, throughout their careers, where, they kind of set their sights on an offensive lineman where, other people maybe go, well, why the hell would you like him? And it turns out that they end up being pretty freaking solid players. I mean, Inez Cooper is Exhibit 1A. He was ranked like somewhere in the thousands, like outside of the top 1,000 players. He was overweight. He was out of shape. He just looked really bad coming into college. And look where he is now. He's going to be a draft pick next year. So the way that the way that the offensive linemen are being graded outside of just the 4-star players really makes me think that Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal kind of they've figured out a formula for what they're looking for in an offensive lineman. And then Camden Portis, he's been a guy who's been right there for a while. I don't think it's going to take that much for him to be able to make that jump. He's not that far behind the 4-star recruits in the on 300, or excuse me, I guess the Rivals 300 now. I think there's probably going to be a pretty good chance that he'll make that jump.
All right, Matt Shodell lost his power, so fortunately we don't really need him anymore. We're going to wrap this thing up with a little conversation on Cortez Redding, the safety. We're reading a lot of tea leaves that are pointing us in the direction of a Miami commit here sometime in the near future. Stephen, if Miami were able to close the deal with Cortez Redding, what would that mean to this recruiting class?
Well, it would mean that Miami finally has the safety. And, quite frankly, I don't know who else is left to go after at this point, unless you start flipping guys. I think Cortez Redding is, it made logical sense. There was a point this fall or back in the spring where it really looked like he was going to be a hurricane. I put in a pick for Miami to get him back in April. Wasn't totally sure if that was going to work out through the summer. I know I kind of had him on again and off again in some of my different mock classes. And there were moments where it seemed like he would be a hurricane. There were moments where, I really wasn't as confident. But I think with Blake Stewart and Devin Jackson going elsewhere, I think that really, really opened the door for Redding to go ahead and secure his spot at the table. Now, if Stewart and Jackson had gone ahead and committed to Miami, does Miami keep their foot on the gas for Cortez Redding? Does Miami keep going after him? I don't know, but we can't live in a world of hypotheticals. Miami's in a very good position for him right now. I think it's very, very, very likely that he ends up being a hurricane on Friday. I think his announcement's going to be at like 4 p.m. or something like that. Won't ever say anything's a done deal until it's actually a done deal. But I will say that I think I'm probably going to start getting ready and preparing for him to join the Canes.
All right. So the Canes will have a safety. Safety is a spot that's been a little troublesome in recruiting in this cycle, and I'm sure they're very happy there inside Canes football headquarters to have a safety on the likely to come on the board here this week. Well, that's going to conclude it for Good Morning CaneSport for today. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. You see the information on the bottom of the screen. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come join our great community of fans. You will not be sorry, and we do everything we can do every single day to make you the most informed fans in America. And it's season time, so that means that we will be grinding it big time 7 days a week for you. So for Stephen Wagner and Matt Shodell, whose power went out on him this morning, I'm Gary Ferman. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you next time.